Yes, I think there's no doubt that where Telstra is doing work has got an obligation to remediate its old pits and pipes for allowing the NBN to put its fibre through. The responsibility for workplace safety is with Telstra, but I don't think NBN Co can wash its hands of this. The fact is that the asbestos issue has been known for some time, and it's always been known. It's always been on the table. And NBN Co should have been more vigilant in overseeing this. And of course there is work being done with that old infrastructure on NBN Co's account, where it actually has to be expanded, or as they say, augmented. So I think both management, both at NBN Co and at Telstra, should have paid more attention to this.
You've argued that your fibre to the node alternative would not disturb legacy infrastructure, therefore not disturb some of these deadly fibres, and we wouldn't have had these incidents. But the reality is you're most likely going to be Minister post-September. What will be your first priority in managing this asbestos concern? Well,
the first priority is that there are rules for dealing, there are procedures for dealing with asbestos. It's got to be dealt with by qualified personnel. There's a whole series of safety regimes. You know, we've all seen people wearing those spacesuits and masks, and you know, the workplaces, the jobs surrounded, sealed up with plastic so that the asbestos fibres can't escape. Clearly that's got to be done, and so there has to be a more vigilant supervision. But one of the virtues of the approach we're taking is that you disturb much, much less of that legacy infrastructure, because the fibre simply, in residential areas, the fibre would simply come to the street cabinet, the street corner, and then you don't have to battle your way through the much smaller ducts and smaller pits that run from the street cabinet to houses, and that's where the work was being done. For example, in Penrith, that's exactly so that Penrith example wouldn't occur in a fibre to the node deployment, because that rollout, that infrastructure right outside people's houses, would be left undisturbed.
And what's your view on the idea of a compensation fund, or in the idea of a register? I think the Minister's going to announce this today, for concerned employees and residents to express their concerns to a new federal regulator. Are you open to those ideas?
Well, I think the registration is a very good idea, and that certainly should be done. So everybody who thinks they may have been exposed to this should register that fact and the circumstances in which they think their exposure may have occurred. And also Telstra and the NBN Co should ensure that, and the government should make sure this happens, should ensure that all the cases of asbestos disturbance that have occurred are logged, and that people adjacent to those areas are advised about it, because there may be people that have been exposed that aren't aware of it. Now, turning to the question of a fund, I don't think it's financially or legally necessary, because I don't think Telstra is about to restructure its business and, you know, move to Holland or anything like that, as James Hardie did. You know, Telstra is a huge company. It's got very substantial resources. I don't think a would-be plaintiff in the future would need be concerned that Telstra won't have the ability to pay its bills, meet its obligations. And of course Telstra is meeting asbestos claims, I would think, all the time, you know, for workers from past exposure. But nonetheless, Telstra may well consider this would be a very good exercise in community relations and in providing people with a greater degree of assurance.
Finally,
to set up a fund.
Yeah, indeed. And finally, you'll be alongside Wayne Swan, an unlikely duo today, to launch a book on the Republic. Now, I know you maintain it won't be achieved during the Elizabethan era, as you describe it. I want to get your sense as to what the view is within the Liberal Party. Has it become more conservative on this issue in recent years, or has there been a shift, do you think?
I don't think so. I think there are people in the Liberal Party who would like to see an Australian as head of state. It's my view, and you know, that's certainly, you know, Peter Costello's view, for example. And then there are people like Tony Abbott and others, Sophie Mirabella, who've been Bronwyn Bishop, who've been very active in the on the monarchist cause. So it's an issue where we have different views. That we had a free vote on it back in the 90s. I mean, obviously I wasn't in the Parliament then, but John Howard enabled that. So it's not an issue that the Liberals have different views, but it isn't an issue that's dividing the Liberal Party at
you
all.
don't think it's going to happen, do you, anytime soon?
Look, Kieran, I have very, very extensive experience in losing referendums, all right? So I know how hard it is to win a referendum, as indeed we may find out at this election with this local government referendum, you know, and that's not nearly as controversial. I just say this to you, if you want to win a referendum on this, you've got to get overwhelming public support, That's going to require a lot of work. You're going to have to get overwhelming support for a particular model. And there's got to be a sense that the time is right to do it. Now, there was a sense of timing in the lead up to the centenary of Federation in '99. There is no sense of that at the moment. And that's why I've said, and I said it in '99, I said if you vote no, it'll mean no for a very long time. I'm still of this view. I think the time when you've got your best chance of winning a referendum is after the end of the Queen's reign, because I think when the Queen's reign ends, whether she dies or abdicates, I think that will be an enormous watershed. And I think people will then reconsider this issue and they'll say, well, this is a appropriate time to think about it. Now, look, I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to think we could become a republic tomorrow, but, you know, it's easy to give bold speeches and call for action, but when you've actually got responsibility for trying to win a referendum, you realise how hard they are to beat. See, the thing you've got to remember about referendums is that in Australia, we've got compulsory voting. So there's always going to be a percentage of the population that aren't interested in the issue, don't understand the issue, have chosen not to understand the issue. In our system, they have to vote, and if you don't know, you are much more likely to vote no. So it's this is a referendum. That's why we've only had one. The last time an even mildly controversial referendum was passed was in 1946. It's very hard. That's why sometimes they say that in constitutional terms Australia is a frozen continent.
Well, Mr. Turnbull, thanks for that and the historical insight as well. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.